Welcome to Mastermind's Flash Class series, brought to you by DonorSearch, a leader in prospect research tools and analytics. And your host, one of America's top philanthropic experts and fundraising consultants, Jay Frost.
Hey there, this is Jay Frost speaking to you, and so happy to welcome you into our very first Flash class of 2020. It's a really exciting time, and you can tell we're excited because we even have some new music to go along with the series. And no, I did not write that intro, although I'll take it. We all take what we can in this life. But the real stars here are the people who are in the series, and we've got people who really live up to this title of the Masterminds, the new title for the series of not only Flash classes, but as you may already know, a series of blogs, live casts, and also a podcast, which is going to be appearing very shortly. So if you like what you're hearing today, and I hope you will, you're going to definitely enjoy all the different ways of entering into that content in the way that you like on your schedule with some of the best minds in the field. And so, well, I'll tell you all about that in the next couple of minutes, but do make yourselves comfortable. Get situated. I'm going to tell you about how you're going to be able to access this material after the fact, how you can share it with colleagues and friends, how you can engage with our presenters, all of that coming up right now. But first, I do want to call attention to the fact that these sessions are provided by DonorSearch, which is providing the platform for this expansion of the Mastermind series. And DonorSearch is also the place you can turn for a lot of great content, including their new totals table. So if you want to know more about DonorSearch, I encourage you to take a look particularly at this new feature, the totals table, with their advanced sorting and filtering, custom data layouts, and custom file exports. You will be able to refine your prospect lists and tailor your data sets and take strategic action much sooner. A lot of great stuff there. And of course, that's just one element of what makes DonorSearch such a great company. And of course, we are particularly happy that they provide a place where we can have real, authentic conversations with thought leaders like the two today. Thought leaders in our series who I'll be introducing to you in just a minute. But if you can, be patient, because I also want to, again, introduce how you can get this content after the fact. And I'll start there. We have a whole Flash Class library section. If you're familiar with the series, you know this already. If you're not, go over to donorsearch.net afterwards, take a look at the resources tab, toggle down to Flash Class library, and you'll find yourself I think there are about 215 different recordings from the last 4 years. This is the entry point to our 5th year. And there's going to be a lot coming to you this year. This session will be posted along with all the others historically to the Flash Class library. We also will have the slides going to you directly by DonorSearch. Those will be sent to you in the next couple of days. So if you don't see them come to you, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to help with that. The recorded videos, of course, are in that library I just mentioned, and you'll be able to sort them all by title, by presenter, or search by keyword. So once again, that's under the Resources tab in the Flash Class library. Of course, since you're here live and in person, this means you can engage with our presenters, which is one of the great parts about doing a webinar, is that you can really talk with people. And today, there's going to be a lot of conversation, a real face-off between top people in our field. So in order to be a real part of that, do look to the GoToWebinar control panel. In fact, where you can see the bouncing arrow right now, that is the questions box. And that's the place where we'd love you to go ahead and enter any question or any comment at any time. Please familiarize yourself with that. I won't go through the process of having you post something today, but I do want you to look for it, because we definitely want your participation in the conversation that we're about to have with these two extraordinary folks who are, of course, Buck and Taylor Shanklin. The topic, of course, today is fundraising face-off. If that caught your attention, well, you're in the right place. This is a conversation that we've been talking about for several months. So happy to bring it to you with these two extraordinary folks in our field. Let me just give you a couple of minutes of introduction, if I may. I'll start in alphabetical order with the gentleman to the left, and that's Buck, CFRE, founder and chief strategist, Tactical Fundraising Solutions. Clay's been a professional fundraiser since the days of 3x5 cards and paper files, as he likes to say, serving as both a consultant and a frontline fundraiser for nonprofits across the country. He is the immediate past president of AFP Las Vegas, a member of the Rogare Advisory Council, an instructor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas in fundraising, and an AFP master trainer presenting around the country. You may have seen him there or maybe on Twitter, and I encourage you to look up both of these folks on Twitter after the session today. Taylor is Vice President of Marketing at Pursuant. If you don't know that firm, well, you definitely want to, and to go look them up. She's also a veteran in the sector with over 12 years in nonprofit tech. Her passion and purpose, as she says, is to help charitable organizations connect the dots between marketing, tech, and fundraising, which she's done with numerous organizations around the country. She's also one of the distinguished authors in the Rogare Report, which is how we put all this together today. And so with no further ado, I'd like to pass the baton to my friends and our first presenters in the Mastermind series, Clay Buck and Taylor Shanklin.
Thanks, Jay. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Let me get my screen pulled up here. Okay, Jay, are we good? Are we rolling?
You're just about there. I see a white screen right now.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to pause it and try to show it again.
I feel like we need that great motivating music back, right? Like a little Jeopardy thing here in between, a little disco, a little funk happening for
all right, let me just try showing my main screen here. Okay.
Sure. Now I can see that screen.
All right.
There we go.
Face off.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yes. Hey, thanks for having us here. Hey, Clay, how are you?
Good, Taylor, you?
I'm good. Are you ready for a face off?
We've been facing off now for over a year, so let's just make it public. I say let's go.
So just for everyone, a quick little background on this. Clay and I were talking recently about this webinar and planning out some content for it and what we could talk about. And in that conversation, we realized that there's a lot that we agree on fundamentally, and there's a few things that are hot button items right now going on as conversations in our sector. And we disagreed on some of those. And so we thought we'd do a whole Travolta cage face-off here today for you to talk about some of those important and emerging issues that are probably top of mind for a lot of you joining us. So thanks for your time today. We hope to make it fruitful, and we hope to make this conversational. But what brings us here? Clay, you want to talk a little bit about what brings us here in the first place?
Sure. So what brought us together and where Taylor and I first met was well over a year ago, where we were part of the Rogare. And if you're not familiar with Rogare, it's a fundraising think tank based out of the UK, headed up by Ian McQuillan, with the focus of looking at fundraising from the critical thinking lens. In other words, asking really important questions and deep questions about the status of fundraising and what we can do as a sector and as a profession to improve, what's working, what isn't working, et cetera. Rogare has produced a number of different country reports, critical fundraising reports, and the United States report was released last year, and both Taylor and I were part of that group that came together, headed by Barbara O'Reilly. If you don't know Barbara at Windmill Hill Consulting, she's also the current president of the AFP Washington, D.C. chapter, and a brilliant leader and thought leader and fundraiser. She headed up the committee that came together, and it was me and Taylor, Mark Pittman, Cherian Koshi, Jim Green, Heather Hill, Ashley Bellinger, Taylor and myself, looking at different areas and doing a lot of research and questioning and asking about where we stand as a sector and as a profession. The link is right there for you to download. It's a free download and a great look at how we're doing in the United States on fundraising. And that's really what led me and Taylor to this ongoing discussion, as she and I have covered kind of the technology and social media areas here.
Yeah, so those are some of the major passions for Clay and myself, looking at how technology affects the way that we fundraise and our sector as a whole. And so we wanted to come today here with the folks at DonorSearch and Jay to really just drive a discussion around that and talk about some of these critical issues. We don't have all the answers yet, but we can't get to the answers if we don't talk about it, right? And so just to kick us off, like, this is the world that we live in, right? I'm sure many of you feel like this woman sitting here in this highly pixelated photo. every day, right? Like there's so many new technologies and data sources, and there's all these new channels to fundraise on, and it can be totally overwhelming. It can be totally exciting, but it can make you feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to focus on. And I'm hoping with this discussion here today that Clay and I, even with our, where we do a pose in our reviews, we can bring up how to help you find what to focus on and how to take a breath. You know, like one thing I like to tell people is take a pause and breathe, because it's gonna be okay. And you need to find the things that work for your organization and take a pause and take a breath on that. So let's get it started. Jay, let's start driving this discussion here.
Sure. And well, of course, this first question that we have queued up here is a seminal one, which is, how do you deepen donor relationships in this digital world?
All right, Clay, you wanna take it first? You want me to start?
And I think a number of these questions, especially this one, are actually where you and I are right on the same page. One of the things that we found, particularly in the report, and I think it's true across the sector, is we have, and Jay, thanks for bringing out that my whole little, snarky 3x5 cards and copy paper, or carbon paper, because we did just quite fine in the mid 80s, raising money with very little technology. And here we are in this world where we have tech that can do everything. And what was true then, what was true 50 years ago, is still true today. How do you deepen donor relationships in this digital world? You craft a good story, you tell a good message, and find the people that it resonates with and keep them close to you. So I think all the tools that we have are really about that, and they're only as good as we implement them and make the goal of deepening that relationship the goal of how we use the technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot out there. I like to talk about the fact that people are still people. So Clay, you alluded to the fact that you fundraised just fine in the 80s. People are still people. Like, we're not different just because the technology is different. Maybe we behave differently, and we do. Like, our daily interactions are different now. I think when you think about the digital world and all of these channels, a couple things come to mind. One, you've got to find the digital channels that work for your organization. Like, where is your audience? Number two, I think you need to think about digital channels as a way to build community. One of my friends and a marketer that I really admire, and was just talking to him the other day, Sangram Vajre, he talks about how without a community, you're a commodity. And so I think when you think about deepening relationships in the digital world, you've got to kind of be there in those channels where your audience is and actually drive conversation to deepen relationships. Don't just put a post up and then expect everyone to show up and share it out and do things about it. You've got to build a community and a conversation around it. And that's where I think finding focus on which channels to put effort and investment to for your organization is really important.
I know you two have talked about this separately when you talked about the channels that you use. And will you be talking a little bit about that maybe in a minute as well?
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about managing the data. How do you manage the data, especially in the service of building those donor relationships in the digital era?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the data management is the key piece. And again, going back to the Regari report and the analysis and digging in that we did, we found that managing data is still one of the key problems for fundraisers. And there seems to be a tendency to put data on the back burner. And the reality is, and this ties directly to question one, right? The more data we have and the more we know about a donor, the better our relationships can be. But it's managing it and keeping it clean. For me, the single most important investment any fundraiser can make is in that data management, and agnostic to whatever system is used, whatever CRM that is used, and there's a lot of really good ones out there. Whatever the system is, it takes a focus and a dedication and a commitment to, we're going to keep our data clean, and we're going to keep it usable, and we're going to make sure that we have as much information about a donor as we possibly can, and even as simple as just making sure that name fields are correct and using personalization. I think I've been publicly saying for 3 or 4 years now, can this year please be the end of the dear friend? And yet we still see so much of that, probably because data is bad or personalization isn't used. We've got all these great tools now that we can do a lot better at managing them and using them. The more personal we get in keeping that data clean, ready to use, and up to date, to me, is probably the most critical focus for the coming years.
Yeah, and I'll tack on to that. I mean, the dear friend, I think it comes out of the fact that the data's bad. You don't have the right first name. You maybe sent out an email that was a huge mistake one time that had all the wrong names in it. And so then you're like, well, I'm just not going to do that again, right? And so you're like, let's revert back to dear friend and keep it generic. But I mean, Clay's absolutely right. And you've got to, your messaging, when you think about personalization, it's only going to be as good as your data. I mean, understanding your donors and their motivations. I think when we think about nonprofit data, we have a tendency to just kind of look at the traditional, line items of recency, frequency, monetary, but we really need to go beyond that. I think, when we think about managing the data, it's more than just what was their last gift, and that's important, but it also needs to be what was their last gift and what's their connection to our cause. And so thinking about your data from the perspective of looking at the donor more holistically as a person and not just an ATM, I think is really important. When we look at managing the data, it is hard because there are a lot more channels and sources of data coming in these days to us, right? So it's like you've got people on Facebook, and you've got people on your peer-to-peer platform, and you've got maybe spreadsheets. If you're like a multi-affiliate organization, you're like, oh, my chapters still do everything in a spreadsheet, and there's all the Excel docs everywhere. And so I think, the key to getting cleaner data is about figuring out how to funnel it into a system that can actually help you make sense of it too. The exciting thing is there's a lot more of those systems coming out today that are available and even affordable to nonprofits. And so trying to get everything kind of into one place where you can look at things more holistically, I think is a big key to success. I'm not going to lie and say it's not a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. But if you can start taking the steps toward that, that's how you'll start communicating to that community in a more meaningful way. That's how you'll start feeling comfortable about saying Dear John instead of saying Dear Friend.
And I agree with you 100%, Taylor. I think we'd be a little remiss if we walked away from this part without mentioning. I mean, and this has grown even since we did the report last year. Is we're seeing in the United States so many new laws, state laws coming out on data management. Nevada just passed one. Vermont has one on the books and is already active. And CCPA, California Consumer Protection Act, goes into effect. If it hasn't, I think it might have gone into effect at the first of the year. And on the surface, these laws don't apply to nonprofits. And you read the law and you go, oh, great, it doesn't apply to me. They do apply to our vendors, though. And they do apply to anybody doing business at certain levels within the states, and they're all slightly different. It's a patchwork of different things. It's gonna catch us. I really do predict that at some point these data privacy laws are going to catch up to the nonprofit sector, And if we're not looking at things like data security and data management and what we do with our lists, I mean, just as simple as, for heaven's sake, please stop emailing lists to vendors. And if your vendor asks you for a list of your donors with their address and key personal information and asks you to email that, please find a new vendor or tell them, no, you don't do that. My point there is, this has to be a leadership function. This has got to get to the chief development officers, to CEOs, to executive directors, and to board leadership. We really have to accept, as Seth Godin says, we are living in a connection economy now. And the rules are changing and the way we approach it are changing. So this has to be more systemic than just, oh, I should really clean my data. It really does need to be at the leadership level, that it's made a part of our culture, that we take care of data, we clean data, we are on top of data, because we don't want to be the one, you know, that nonprofit that gets called out as being in violation of any of these privacy laws or tagged into something like that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it does have to be at the leadership level, and that's where I think things need to start changing. I see some organizations starting to really be data driven and data focused, like they get it. Because if you're doing bad marketing because your data's bad, then you're gonna kill your brand and your reputation. And as you spoke of, Clay, you've got to worry about all of those data privacy issues. So I agree, it's got to be something that starts at the top, that's organizationally bought into as highly important.
Yeah.
The days of running off of note cards worked in the 80s, and they don't work now. People who continue to run that way they're not going to be successful in the future. And so I think just wrapping our minds around that and saying, all right, we gotta start moving in this direction, at least just that kind of a buy-in, like let's start moving in this direction, is just the first step. And we're gonna get into a little more debate on what kind of data you need.
I'm holding off. I really am restraining myself, and I want credit for that, right? Because I know it's coming.
Well, in fact, while you two were talking, we did have a question come in, which in fact mirrors the question we were going to ask. Ellen had asked, what tools do you think are the best to create that personalization so you can stay away from dear friend? So maybe that's a segue, I'm not sure, about which technologies should we care about? What are your thoughts on her question specifically, and then generally about which tech is really what makes things work?
Clay, can I start? I'll start.
Go. Yeah, go. I know what you're going to say.
I'm going to keep a high level at first, okay? I'm going to talk to you about the things that you need to have in your marketing technology stack. And when I say that, it's what are the different technologies and pieces of technology that are going to fit together, that are going to help you build that community, deepen those relationships, run and manage your data. First off, I think you need some sort of a marketing automation tool, right? So there's a ton of them out there on the market. There's some built for any type of company or nonprofit to use, like HubSpot, Marketos of the world. There's some that are built specifically for the nonprofit sector. But I think first and foremost, you need something that's going to help you build the right communication workflows when you're thinking about your email and everything that's coming in from your CRM or your spreadsheets and the like. I think you need a good CRM that works with that marketing automation. Some of them you can get that are kind of an all-in-one, all-encompassing. Some of them you might get like what's called a point solution, where you're kind of plugging things together, and there's a lot more integration happening these days, so it's easier to get those systems talking to each other, at least in theory, right? I think you need some simple marketing tools that are easy for everyone to use. So when you think about the content you're creating and the stories that you're telling, there's a ton of amazing tools out in our world today, that are really simple and really affordable, like Canva. And there's a ton of great video apps that I like to use for creating videos. Video Shop is one that I really love. Canva, all of these you can kind of get desktop versions, app versions on your phone. So you can start to be more empowered even just in working on your phone when you're maybe sitting on the subway or something like that. And then lastly, one that I want to call out, and it goes back to the data, is really thinking about business intelligence. And that's a term that we hear a lot about in the for-profit world. It's making its way more into the nonprofit world now. Business intelligence will help you do what I said, where you're understanding your donors in a more holistic level. You can plug in, if you've got like a wealth engine system or wealth scoring, you can plug those into these tools and start to really understand your donors from a deeper level, plugging in wealth data, past giving history, maybe from your CRM, plugging in maybe social engagement data to see what channels your donors are on in social. Are they Twitter fans? Are they LinkedIn fans? Are they Facebook fans? So just to recap, because that was a lot: marketing automation, good CRM, marketing tools like Canva, video, things like that, that'll help you actually make your content look good. And then lastly, business intelligence. All right, Clay, over to you now.
CRM, period. The single greatest investment you can make is in your CRM, because it all begins and ends there. And honestly, if your CRM, the system that you're using to manage donor information, gift entry, etc., isn't linked to all of those things or doesn't have those inherent properties, then really look at it, because we're living in a day and age where out of the box CRMs are coming with a lot of these tools inherent in them that tie directly to website, to online giving, that host your giving pages, that host your marketing automation, et cetera. So to me, the single greatest investment is finding the CRM. And we could spend a whole, goodness, not even just an hour flash class, but a whole month on how to choose and pick the best CRM. And the short answer is, what do you need it to do? Sit down and define, what do we need the CRM to do? The number one thing being manage our data, manage our information about donors and gift entry. And then after that, really define what it does. But to me, with so many great systems on the market, that CRM investment is probably the single greatest asset you can have.
The one thing I'm going to add into this is, and this is where it might be a little bit of chicken or the egg, is when we're thinking about digital and the fact that people are giving offline, we didn't talk about online fundraising. And I think when you think about your online fundraising tool, what is taking the data in from the very first point of entry when someone interacts with you through your donation form? That's highly important. And that might be something that's debatable, Clay, is that experience for people and the first impression they're getting with you. I think they're equally important, but which one's
you want to face off on that instead of what we planned, we can go there. If
you have to focus on one, what's more important? I mean, they're both important, but I do think that creating a stellar, and I mean stellar, donation or peer-to-peer or whatever that interaction is, that experience in the digital world is important, because it creates the impression of your organization that the donor's getting. And so, like, if it's hard to do on a mobile phone, or if it's hard to do on a desktop, or if it takes 20 screens to click through, you're going to lose people. So that's highly, highly important, and you should definitely care about that.
We do have a question from Ben, who asked, what do marketing automation tools make possible on top of having individual tools like MailChimp or Hootsuite or something like that? Maybe this is also another kind of chicken and egg thing, but you were talking about CRMs, but then these other applications. What are the marketing automation tools doing on top of these other tools?
Yeah, it's a great question. They are helping you to build out more holistic engagement, I believe. And there are some where, like, if you get, let's say you get a HubSpot or something like that, you can kind of go in there and do everything all in one. You can send out your emails, you can track behavior and engagement, you can have different kinds of form interactions, like an email subscription, stuff like that. And so when you think about a marketing automation tool as opposed to just a MailChimp, and by the way, MailChimp is good, and it's definitely improved a lot, and a lot of organizations use it successfully, and then they integrate MailChimp in with all of the other tools. And so I think marketing automation is just a way of thinking through providing kind of a holding spot for all of your engagement data, if that makes sense. I don't know, Clay, you might have some more to add.
I agree with you. I think that's a little more in your expertise than mine. I just, what I care about is, well, actually, oh God, here we go. This whole conversation
And
has
it
been happening for a
begins.
couple of weeks now on Twitter, of course, like I really want a tool, especially in marketing automation. If I send out an email and people reply to it, I really need to build in that technology so that you're segmenting and sub-segmenting and keeping, if I've already asked them and they've replied, I don't want them to get the next email. So anything that supports that, again, the personal donor journey path, right, and honoring donors where they are and recognizing where they are in the digital space, that's really where a marketing automation tool can be phenomenally helpful.
Yeah. And happy to talk through any more questions afterwards if you have questions that you want to pick our brains on afterwards. All right, Jay.
Big one. And we've talked about this offline.
The face-off.
Everywhere, which is Facebook fundraisers. So, yay or nay?
I say yay, and here's why. I understand that you don't get all of the data that you want. I understand that. But the reason I say yay is because we as a sector need to do a better job of adapting to the way that people want to interact today. Now, I'm not all gung-ho on Facebook. Like, I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. What I do think is it's where there is still a ton of attention. There's a ton of eyeballs there, and there's a lot of money being raised through the platform. I'll also say that sometimes, and this is where Clay's going to disagree with me a little bit, because I do believe in a lot of different ways of giving and building relationships and everything like that. But sometimes it's okay to take the money and run, because taking the money helps you then invest back into the mission. And so I think it is something that if you feel like you've got a good following on Facebook and you can use this channel to grow, I think you should grow it. I think a lot of humans are out there that are inherently very good people and they want to give to an organization because their friend posted something on Facebook about it and they care about it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be your best donor. But it also doesn't mean you can't take the $25 or the $50 or whatever it is and then use it to invest back in your other programs.
Do you want to go ahead and jump into the next slide before I sort of jump in and respond, and we dig into the face-off here? We cannot ignore the power of Facebook, and we can't. And I mean, Giving Tuesday in this past year, yes, giving on Facebook was down, but it was still like 125 million. It was just an insane amount of dollars coming in through Facebook fundraisers. This is actually Facebook's slide. This is their information. It came from them. And I want to say it was September that this report was released, that they have announced they've raised $2 billion with a B, $2 billion was raised for nonprofits since launching in 2015. Half of that is from birthday fundraisers, right? So from people going, hey, honor my birthday instead of, give money to this. And 45 million people have donated or started a Facebook fundraiser on Facebook. Now, I don't know if that's 45 million unique or if there's repetition in there, because we didn't really dig into, they didn't really release these numbers, but even so, right, this is significant and it can't be ignored. We can't walk away from it. We can't just turn our backs to it and say, I'm not going to do a Facebook fundraiser, it's not working. Clearly it is, because $2 billion out in the social sector doing good, 125 million just last year alone from Giving Tuesday. That is money that is out there doing good, doing great work. And this conversation is really the genesis of the face-off, and where Taylor and I, in digging into the tech and social media aspect for that Regare report, this is where we split, and this is where we looked at each other and went, love you, respect you, but but agree to disagree. And here's where I come at it from. What concerns me is when Facebook is seen as a potential replacement for or instead of other tools, because we know, and if you look at all of the data that is out there and all of the analysis that is being done by so many practitioners in the field, that direct response, direct mail is still generating results. Digital is generating good results. It's still not generating as high as direct mail is. But there are still good tools out there. And what I see so often is organizations going, I'm going to invest full bore in Facebook fundraising and setting aside other proven techniques. That's the biggest concern. And I think that this, in response to all of the questions, is true. We're no longer operating in a fundraising world where you can focus on one channel. We have to be multi-channel. So is a Facebook fundraiser a part of a strong integrated multi-channel communications and fundraising program? Absolutely. Should it be our sole focus just because it's free and easy to set up? That's where my biggest concern comes from. And I'll just go ahead and answer the question, Taylor, that I know you're going to ask. Yeah, I am much more interested in investing in platforms where I'm actually going to get donor data than I'm not. And the argument about that, and I hear it, and it's true, right? That the Facebook platform doesn't always provide the donor-specific information, because the donors aren't, when they give to a birthday fundraiser or a Facebook fundraiser, there's a pop-up that says, do you want to provide your email address? No, I don't. They have the option to opt in or opt out. It's a pretty perfunctory box, and you can't customize it. And you can't, we customize it to say, hey, we really want to stay in touch with you. We're grateful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right, and really forge that relationship. So should it be there to bring in money? Absolutely. Can you use that money to develop other platforms, as you said, Taylor? Absolutely. I just really think we need to be in avenues where we can really control the messaging and find those donors that want to be a part of us and want to be with us and are really bought into and believe in the mission. Mission. I've made a new word. It's mission plus message combined, right? So the word for 2020 is fundraising mission. Right? So where those donors are really bought in.
All right. So a couple of thoughts, and I realized we had another slide on this, Clay.
I mean, these are just good examples of. Again, this is from Facebook. We can just leave it up and let folks read along with it, because these are organizations that are doing phenomenal work on Facebook. I'm willing to bet that these shops have dedicated staff, which I also think is a key thing to being successful, right? Do you have dedicated staff that can focus on it? Because if you're a one person or a 3-person or 5-person shop and everybody's wearing 20 different hats, I kind of lean to focus on those other channels, right? Spend your energy there versus spending time on Facebook that's going to get little return, comparatively speaking, to others. And again, you're not going to get that long-term data that you need to really forge the relationships, and you can drive that in other places. Sorry, Taylor, I jumped all over you on that. No,
you're good. So a couple of thoughts back. First off, I don't agree you should put all your eggs in one Facebook basket. No way, no how. I'm not saying that. I do think that even if you have a small shop, I think this is a channel to think about and to consider. And it is something that everyone has to sit down and individually consider. I don't think only just the large shop should be doing this. I think it's a high consideration. I think Facebook won't be the thing probably in 3 to 5 more years. Who knows? We don't know. But it's just a thing right now. And so my whole shtick is really about just adaptation and looking at what is working right now and thinking about investing some time and building community and what's working right now. It's going to change. Everything changes all the time. If it didn't, we'd be bored. But Clay, I mean, something where I think one of the biggest like main points of disagreement was in that checkbox, the donor information. I'm not so sure people are just missing it. I think a lot of them are probably skipping it on purpose because they want to give. But I think there have been a lot of bad practices that the nonprofit sector unfortunately gets a bad rap for over the years. And so I think there's a lot of people who want to give to a friend. They want to support the cause. They want to be good. They want to do good and give back, but they don't want to feel like they're going to end up getting a bunch of mail and on a bunch of lists. And I just had so many conversations with people about this who are giving less because they are just like, I don't want to end up on some list. And so I think that's something that's kind of an uphill battle that we have to fix and approach through better practices.
Right. No, I agree. And I am jumping in. Forgive me if I'm interrupting. I agree, which is why I think we can't look at, and again, I hear this all the time, we can't look at Facebook or any fundraising platform as a standalone. And even in our systemic approach to how we fundraising, we're siloing ourselves within our own departments, right? You have a social media manager, you have a direct response manager. If you're lucky, those are two different people in two different positions, who is also your grant manager, who is also, right? So we silo these job functions. For a Facebook fundraiser, for any social media fundraiser to be successful, we have to look at that integrated whole. So yeah, donors are very loudly telling us that they don't love the repetitive communications, that they don't love getting asked all the time. So, let's improve our communications. Let's improve that digital approach. Let's improve the way we communicate with our donors overall, and then talk about investing in Facebook and encouraging signups, right? We've got to look at it holistically and look at the whole systemic way. I said earlier, I think the single most significant investment you can make, especially in 2020 and beyond, is in your CRM and in your data management. And I absolutely believe that's true. Second is in the quality of your communications. And we have data. This is what we didn't have, Jay, back in the days of 3x5 cards and carbon copies. We had, great books and great thought leaders. I read in I'm really going off on a tangent here, but if you're a reader and a fundraiser who really likes to read, reread Cy Seymour's Designs for Fundraising. It's out of print now, but you can still get it on Amazon. It was written in 1965, 66, and the principles in that are still absolutely true today. The advance of technology has not advanced and improved the way we communicate with donors. Then you compare that to what we're seeing from the Fundraising Effectiveness Project and donor retention studies, and Giving USA, where fewer households are giving. From a high level, you can dig into that a little further and find that it's. But anyway, everything is telling us that we've got to improve our fundraising, both in terms of how we contact donors through CRMs, through data management, and then also what we contact them with in our communications. Those have got to be our two priority focuses. And I'd much rather see the investment there than in chasing down potential birthday fundraisers or other Facebook fundraisers on social media and get out of that bright shiny object syndrome,
May I ask you too, one follow-up question on this? It came in from Daniel. It's about Facebook. So before you turn away from Facebook entirely, Daniel asked.
Clay's trying hard.
Daniel says, it seems most Facebook fundraisers are organic, which is a great thing. But what are your thoughts on recruiting donors to become Facebook fundraisers, or I guess, many of us would even call them ambassadors, as a way to further engage them and turn them into advocates for your nonprofit? Do you see a lot of this? Is that potentially a bridge so that, even if we've run into, say, Facebook, which we don't control, but it's generating $2 billion, is there a way we can use our best practices to further engage our own existing donors and volunteers. So we raise more money and more goodwill.
Can I just latch on to something, Taylor, real quick before you jump in?
Okay, fine, because I really want to jump in on this one.
I know this is
love
the
Daniel.
question, Jay. This is it.
Daniel's the one. No.
I think, and Taylor, I know you agree with me. I think the folks that commit to doing organically a birthday fundraiser or any other type of fundraiser on Facebook, these are our true champions. These are the folks that, I mean, wow, right? Like, I think donors are amazing anyway. It's a weird proposition. I go out and earn money to, pay for my house and pay for things I need, and then I also give it away to make my values happen in the community. Like, this is just an amazing thing. For somebody to go on Facebook, on their social media platform, and say to their group of connections, hey, I'm going to put myself out here and ask for you to join me in supporting this. It's beautiful. Those are the folks. Those are the people that we need to get our arms around. Those are the ones that we need the data on, to contact with and celebrate them for being the heroes that they are. Recruiting folks to do the same. Yeah, if you've got but what it takes is that great engaged community to bring them in and really have your arms around them and support them and shower them with all of that good donor love stuff and make them feel valued and important and wonderful so that they feel encouraged. But are we doing that with our boards? Are we doing that with our other communities that we already have involved with, volunteers and other committees? That's not just Facebook. That's everywhere, and that's everybody that we interact with. If we can crack that and master that we have this core group of champions who love us and are out there, telling folks to join us, then again, we're even further to creating something magical happen.
Yeah. All right. So Facebook is one tool and one channel where you absolutely should leverage those ambassadors. I'm going to call them influencers. Okay. In the world of marketing, we hear a lot about influencer marketing and how to use influencer marketing in this day and age. It's not something that I think we're talking about enough in our sector. I think we should be talking about influencer marketing, and this is one way to do that. It is finding those champions and finding the channels in which they do have a big voice and they do have influence, and they are like ready and able and just like, hey, sign me up, help me spread the word. Okay, then you support them in spreading the word where they do have a larger influence, and people are gonna maybe be influential in different channels. And so that's why I think it goes beyond just Facebook. Facebook is one of the best, easiest, fastest tools to kind of get there and get them up and running. But if, let's say, I mean, Clay, to your point about board members, let's say you've got a highly influential board member who's got a huge following on LinkedIn or on Twitter or something about like that. Think about how you can use influencers like that, support them to build influence on the channels in which they are influential. How many times can I say influence in a couple of sentences? And support them there. So think about it from that perspective. Yes, absolutely use Facebook as one of those tools, but I would challenge you to think about it a little bit more at a macro level. And how are we going to find our influencers, figure out where to support them, and then even support them with like, here's some interesting stuff you could talk about on our behalf. Here's an event link to where you can invite your friends out to come to this event. Here's a donation campaign that we're running. And so I think thinking about those people in that way and in the context of Facebook is a good idea.
And take a look at, there was just an article, what was it, 2 days ago, Jay? I think I either tweeted it at you or sent it to you or something. And we should have expected it. We should have seen it. We should have known it was coming because people complained about direct mail. They complained about phone. Now they're complaining about social media. Take a look at those birthday fundraisers that you'll see, and you'll notice that most of them do not adapt the boilerplate language that Facebook gives them. Hey, I'm raising money for a good cause. Well, you start to see that in your feed over and over and over and over and over again, and you get to a satiation point where it doesn't mean anything anymore. So if we're going to support any of those groups, whether it's Facebook, whether it's any platform, Taylor, as you said, right across the board, whether even if it's sending out a letter appeal or a digital appeal over somebody's signature, we've got to have our language and our communications out there that makes us stand out and makes our story really strong, so that we can give it to those advocates who are out there. But I really do think too, let's be a little clear on the money on Facebook. $2 billion is a lot of money. And there's a lot of organizations that you can see some of these statistics, and there's more out there online, where a number of organizations have raised hundreds of millions. The one that's going around now for the fires in Australia, she's raised what, 35 million, something like that, on a Facebook funder online, which is phenomenal. Most organizations though are raising a couple of hundred, a couple of thousand from those, but investing a lot of time in raising that, which again, I'm not detracting from Facebook. I'm not saying people shouldn't be on it. I'm saying invest in those areas where you're going to get the biggest return, and really have that fundamental question of, do I want transactional or do I want transformational dollars? For me, the investment in strategies that are going to bring a donor in a way that we can communicate with them very well with proven results over the long term is the far greater investment than jumping into an organic platform that may or may not turn around big dollars. Support it, encourage it, right? But it's not, as with anything, Taylor, as you're saying, it's not the silver bullet that's going to solve all of our fundraising woes.
No, absolutely not. I think one thing we don't do often enough is, before starting a campaign or sending out an appeal or whatever it is, I don't think we often enough take a step back to pause and breathe, like the first slide, and say, what do people today care about? What's their perspective? Everyone in this world who's supporting us is buzzing around with their own prerogatives and their own agendas and their, soccer practice schedules and all of that. What is it that is their perspective, and how do we adapt to that? How do we keep things stupid simple? People want simple these days, and I think we need to keep it really simple. Clay, I've got a question for you. Talking about transactional versus transformational, I actually think it's okay to have a mix of the two. I mean, that's my own personal beliefs. I think there is transformational giving, and that's highly important to be part of your program. And I think, as an example of Facebook, some of those donors, it's okay to just let them be transactional and support, like we talked about earlier, the influencers that are helping to bring those transactions in, to help you give them good content to spread and all of that. But Clay, do you feel like let's say you're an organization, you're running a campaign. Do you think every single donor needs to be nurtured into a transformational type of relationship?
Yes. I think they need to have the option, because, well, first, we can't define transactional versus transformational by dollar amount. And that's one thing that I see a lot, that, you say transactional versus transformational and people immediately think, size of gift. Well, people that are giving major gifts are transformational. Anything below that is transactional. The $25 donor, the $10 donor, and there's a phenomenal series on this going on the Agitator right now. They're doing a series on level of giving anyway. It's a great read, and it's some great information. It's not about us. It's not about our level of giving at the organization. It's about the donor, because for some, a $25 gift is for them a transformational gift. This is why not having the data does, to me, it's not tripping me up. It's just, I want that data because I want to be able to give the donor the option, the true option, not just a checkbox, not just an opt-in or out, but the true option to really engage with us and to understand that their $25 gift, their $15 gift, their $100 gift is just as transformational and important and reflects their values and their alignment with our mission and our vision reflects it just as much as the $500, the $5,000, the $25,000 gift does. So if we think about every interaction with us as being potentially transformational, that's where we start to move the needle. Will some say, look, I gave you $50 because, you know, my friend did a birthday fundraiser and I don't want any more engagement? Yes, absolutely. And you're always going to have those and encourage those and nurture them. But let's give them the option. Let's be able to give them the option to let the donor explicitly tell us how they want to be engaged. And again, Taylor, this is I think where you and I split the most, right? Is I don't know that the messaging on Funbook, goodness gracious, Facebook is enough strength to really give that person the true, yes, I really believe it, and I really do want to be involved with this organization on a deeper level, or at least keep giving. I don't think it's enough there to really drive that.
Well, I got an idea for you. I think Facebook should hire tactical fundraising solutions, Mr. Claybuck, and go help them fix it. You know, I'm not hearing a total nay. Like, I'm just gonna throw
not
that
at all
out there. I'm not hearing a total nay from you.
I just, you know, again, I just want us all to be able to communicate. We're doing such important work. And the charities, the folks that are on this call, every single one of them is representing an organization that is changing and improving the world in some way, shape, or form. And it's Henry Nouwen. If you haven't ever read his Spirituality of Fundraising, whether you come from a faith background or not, he says at one point, fundraising is expressing our joy in such a way that we're inviting others to participate with us in sharing in our mission and vision. And that's how I see it in every platform. Everything we do out there is about inviting others to join us in conquering this problem or improving the world in this way. So everything that facilitates that is, in my mind, a good thing.
All right. Well, I know that we are. Oops. I'm sorry. I think I.
Nah, this is the. I mean, it's the same point, right? Are we grabbing at straws or are we being strategic? There's, you know, and a little joke about recycling straws that is going to fall flat. So anyway, we've covered it.
Those are beautiful blue and white striped straws. Nice image, Clay. So Jay, I don't know if we have any questions to wrap up here. I know we're at the end. I thought I'd go ahead and pull up our contact information if anyone on the line wants to get in touch with us further. Yes. I know Clay, we're both happy to chat more with folks about these types of strategies and ideas and thinking.
We do have a whole bunch of questions, and maybe we can just take a couple quick ones as we roll out the hour, and then remind everybody, first of all, yes, your contact information is right there, so do write that down. These folks are an invaluable resource for all of us in the field, but also that a recording of this is, once again, it's being posted to the DonorSearch.net site. So again, DonorSearch.net, under the Resources tab, Flash Class Library, it'll be right there, so you can share this with colleagues, and we'll be sending the questions on to Taylor and Clay so they can address them perhaps directly with you as well. But maybe we can just take a couple quickies here, because there are a whole bunch that have come through, and some are really about the kinds of things you were just talking about. So one of the things has to do with, in fact, there were several questions about peer-to-peer, and one was about peer-to-peer includes investing time in Facebook fundraisers, which I'm now hearing that perhaps is not worth spending time on. Do you think that was the right takeaway? How do you feel about that?
So I'm guessing it's doing peer-to-peer alongside of Facebook, and now you're not sure if you should spend time on Facebook as well or on peer-to-peer as well. I'll say, if you can find a peer-to-peer platform that integrates well with Facebook fundraisers, that's a good first step. I do think, and Clay talked about this, like your peer-to-peer program and your Facebook fundraising support, let's just call it support or program, are two separate things, but they can come together because there are more platforms now building those integrations. So if you can get a platform that's integrated, awesome. If you can't, I mean, one way I've done a lot in peer-to-peer, one way to think about it is if you've got a peer-to-peer platform, let's say you're running a walk or a bowl-a-thon or a ride or like whatever it is, I think you need to still invest in a good peer-to-peer platform for that, because it is a whole different animal. And you know, you might want to have teams and a bunch of stuff there where you can get good platforms these days that have so many like coaching tools and things like that built in for participants. So I think if you're doing a real like extensive peer-to-peer program, don't rely just on Facebook. Keep that
Right.
peer-to-peer platform for sure, and then think about how Facebook fits into that strategy. If you can integrate it, awesome. If you can't, then use Facebook as a tool to link back to your main peer-to-peer event website and like get people, drive traffic to that peer-to-peer event website.
Agreed. And let me add, NJ, to that question, to be crystal clear. I do think that every charity should have Facebook presence and should have an ability to give via Facebook. Determination is yours whether or not to use Facebook's payment processor or tag your own. That's one of the great things about it. You can actually tag your own payment processor, your own online giving page to a Facebook page, right? It doesn't have to go through Facebook's processors. The nice thing is there are no fees with it. So please, I hope nobody walks away going, oh, Clay said we really shouldn't be on Facebook. Nope, I think it's a great resource and a part of every robust giving program. But literally, as we're talking today, things I hadn't fully even considered or thought of deeply before, but think about the power of using peer-to-peer in a Facebook fundraising in your board give get. So to that question, there's a lot of ways that you could integrate this in a really great peer-to-peer platform. And if you can't, I've been there. Believe me, I've been there. You don't have the budget or the resources to invest in an actual peer-to-peer platform. Facebook would be a great way to augment that, as long as you're encouraging the champions and getting them out there and giving them the tools they need, and being thoughtful and intentional about it versus, well, we're just going to stick it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, either way, last point, I know we're a little bit over, either way, like if you build it, they will come. No, not true. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. There we go. If you had to summarize everything, that's
just get that out and break some hearts over it. But no, like you've got to invest in it. You've got to get good messaging out there and really support it and promote it. That's critical.
And let me just ask you a last final one. It kind of rounds up several questions that people asked and make this kind of a lightning round. This is the hardest question ever, but it's one that comes up with every single webinar we've done. And it's definitely come up today because you talk tech, and what do people think of when they think of tech? Right? They think about things like cost and staff. Right. So there are a good number of people here and throughout the sector that are at small shops. And some are very specific to different things like religious charities, where maybe Facebook might be a platform for some of their friends to do things, but it doesn't necessarily talk to people outside that network of people who are interested in that particular cause. Do you have any just kind of quick thoughts for small organizations that want to avail themselves of tech in order to build these great relationships, just like in question one, to really make it about the donor, but to keep growing that pie?
Yeah, I think what's so exciting about the world that we live in today is that the tech is becoming more affordable at every level. So I think that there's things for the big guys, and there's a lot of really inexpensive and quite powerful, to be frank, solutions for the small guys who are just getting started. So what I'll say to this is don't just assume that the technology is too expensive. Do the research, get into it. You might find that it's actually like there's a lot of tools out there now today that you can afford. If you have specific questions about tech that you're thinking about, feel free to shoot me an email because I can talk about that all day long.
Yeah.
But just big point, don't make assumptions that you can't afford it. There's a ton of stuff out there that's really reasonably priced for smaller organizations, and you can start small and you can start simple and move the ball from there.
I would add, because you're absolutely right, there's a platform for everybody at every price point and every management level. Regardless of the size of your database and your program, the investment in a CRM is probably the single greatest investment you can make, the investment in technology to manage your data and your relationships. This requires thoughtful strategic planning. It's not just looking at quotes and features and sit down and go, why? Why do we want this? What do we want it to achieve, and how will it be implemented? Because it's going to impact everything in the organization. As simple as who's going to listen, your data is only as good as your gift entry person, right? Who's going to do that? Who's got the direct responsibility for all of this? So there's a lot of thoughtful approach to how you do it. But Taylor, you're exactly right. Don't be afraid of it. We shouldn't be afraid of it. It's like CRMs now are like so user friendly. Click button, go. It's wonderful. So just be thoughtful and strategic about what you're going to do with it.
Thank you both so much. I mean, we could have talked all day, and but
Taylor and I probably will. I'm looking at my
Probably
phone
call
and
each
seeing
other
text
after
going,
this.
oh boy, I'm in trouble.
we'll have to save more for later. But there was no major bloodletting here today. It sounds like as well as
it's because you are such a kind and good host, Jay. We appreciate you a great deal.
Our thanks to Clay and Taylor. Thank you very much for being our first in the Mastermind series. We really appreciate it.
Oh, next week's, I can't wait for next week. Sorry for the plug, but next week's going to be amazing.
There you go. You already teed it off. So next week we have Erica Wasdorp, President of the Direct Solutions, Integrating Monthly Donors. And then we also have on Thursday, Robert Hotz talking about strengthening the board. So great sessions coming up in this series, as well as, of course, all the other elements here. So if you want to add to your knowledge here or a different way of viewing this content, you're going to find, of course, the live cast with our two guests today, as well as their blogs at the DonorSearch site, and coming very soon, a podcast talking about all these issues with you. So we hope you'll tune into that. Of course, this has been the Mastermind series, and we really appreciate your being here. We hope you'll keep coming back every Tuesday at this time, and every Thursday on a more occasional basis at 3 p.m. we'll be having these sessions with these great folks. And in case you didn't hear it at the top of the hour, we had some great music that debuted our series this time. That's from Ahmad Ibrahim. We want to thank him so much for those cool tunes. And of course, our producer, Terrence Diggs, who silently in the background makes everything work. We appreciate them both so much. And we appreciate you. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Till then, take care.